Hey everyone, and welcome to Money with Soul. It's Amy, and I'm here, and it's been a while. I know it's a couple of weeks, but I'm really excited to bring you something that I think is a really interesting conversation and really relevant in today's world. And I, the question today is it your intuition or is it financial anxiety? And I want to anchor into one of the soul money principles of radical truth, which is really important for us to really change the relationship we have with money. And so the whole premise of heart-led money is that we make decisions based on our intuition or in it's not so much intuition, it's our heart. And I think intuition plays a big part in being able to uncover what is in the subconscious. So the body doesn't lie. And so that gives us the sense of when something is out of alignment. However, there's sometimes this sense of it's an intuitive message and we make decisions on that, but it could also be coming from a place of fear or financial anxiety. And how they feel can be distinctly different, but only if we've done the work to uncover what the difference feels like for us. So, for example, for me, my intuition is very calm, it's quiet, and it's steady, and there's no thinking in the decision making process. That feels like a very different decision. It's a heart led decision. It's like the conscious next step. It's very much around what the next step is. When I'm in a place of anxiety, or for me in my past, very much around comparing myself to others and feeling like I'm not good enough, the decisions that I made were there was a sense of urgency and the needing to make it that decision to change or to do something. It was like, I have to do this. There was this urgency around it. And I think we suffer more from our imagined financial futures than the reality of this moment. And that can be because we haven't actually stopped to ask ourselves, well, what is our money story and how is it showing up in the decisions that we're making? And is this decision a fear based decision because I'm scared of not keeping up or not being keeping up with people around me, or there's some sort of unforeseen future that I'm trying to avoid? And how much of it is a presence into what really is important to me and where am I really living in alignment with my values? And so present actually asks, what's happening now? Where am I now? So if there, for example, is a money problem in the now, then presence isn't really creating, it's actually looking at, well, what is the problem? And then when you identify the problem, there also at that same moment offers of the solution arise. And I've seen this time and time again. It's often us not actually identifying the problem that is the problem, because the problem becomes like a what might happen or a result of this problem and what that looks like. And so the the energy is really looking at the future, and that creates anxiety in the now. And when we're in a place of anxiety or nervous system dysregulation and that fight or flight, we're not able to think clearly. The decisions that we make are not going to come from a place of presence. It's not going to come from that place of what is truly important to me. It's going to come from a place of what do I need to do to avoid that future that I've created. And I think that's where it's really important for us to ask ourselves, is this my inner intuition, my place of presence, where I'm looking at what is now and where I am? Or is this a financial anxiety or an anxiety about what might happen? To give you an example, there's so much noise in the world at the moment around the state of our finances, around property prices, around mortgage and interest rates, around what's happening in the world in terms of inflation. And these can all create a lot of financial anxiety based on what we think might happen in the future. And so it's really important for us to step away from the noise and really come back into a place of stillness or quietness so that we can actually hear ourselves think. But we can also have a look at what's actually happening in ourself and in our situation right now, and we can actually come up with solutions. So if there is interest rate rises and there is like more pressures on our finances, what does that look like in the now, and what are the things that we can, what levers can do we have to be able to adjust to meet that change in the financial situation. Peace is rarely found in predicting the future. It's peace comes from having a clear understanding of where we are and also having a clear plan. And that presence creates the space for us to see what's actually happening, and also having the tools to actually see, well, do we have a buffer in our budget for unexpected expenses? And this is something that is really part of the principle around creating peace in our budget, in our cash flow, in our soul flow, is to have an emergency fund, by having, 3 months income sitting in an account, so that you've got that as a buffer for unexpected expenses. That gives us peace in ourself, in our nervous system, to be able to know that you have that space for unexpected things that arise. And so money often becomes a mirror of our relationship with control. And so when we're in a place where we are needing to control, we often try to play out, well, what if scenarios, and try to then predict, with that scenario I'll do this, with that. But it also creates a lot of load on our mind. And so that's where the the need for us to create the space and create the clarity and create the awareness is really important. And I think also the desire to get ahead can also rob us of the now. And I've definitely been a victim of this one, because I'm always thinking about the future. But there's a very different energy of creating something for a future and actually needing to escape and look forward and create, something different. So there's that, it's also that which wolf, my yoga teacher talked about this, like, there's two wolves within us. There's the energy of fear and the energy of love. And he said, which one survives? And it's like, it's the one you feed. It's the one we feed. What are we feeding in our life? Are we feeding this fear and this future tripping and this anxiety, or are we feeding power and presence and space and clarity? And soul money principle around radical truth is owning and taking responsibility for everything that we've created in our life. And that includes also the good and the bad. And if we're trying to avoid the bad, it's about bringing them to the table, bringing that, negative self-talk to the table, and saying, okay, you're trying to protect me, but you know what? You're not serving me anymore. And I think this is also true for the conversation around money and the way we speak about our finances. So there's the group that won't speak about money at all because they hate it. They don't want to manage it. They just want to avoid it altogether. And then there's people that talk about how tight everything is. What is the conversation that we're having around money right now in this environment? Are we the ones talking about how stressful everything, how cash flow's tight, how this is all, or are we looking at it and coming up with and focusing on who are we in this moment? Who are we in this presence? And where do we have the power to create the energy of financial ease, to create the energy of financial clarity, to create the energy of balance and peace? And it's simply the decision to change the way we speak and the way we think, and that which wolf are we feeding, and we start creating the energy towards the love, the presence, the power. And that's something that we have 100% control over, no matter what financial situation we're facing. And I think the radical truth is the courage to see what is real without the stories we attach to it. And it's interesting, speaking with people about money, their money, the relationship with money, and where that relation energy of money sits in our body, sitting in our head with all of this. And I think of financial anxiety of, it's not so much about what our money situation is, it's also about where the energy is sitting. And if we feel that we're always having to manage and manage and manage this, that, the other, it can create chaos just in the energy of money in our life, separate to what the actual the situation is. The sacred surplus is something that is sacred because it means that we're able to receive and we're able to sit with that financial surplus. But that in itself can trigger the guilt or the shame or the worry about what might be around the corner, or being able to actually spend money on ourselves and nurturing ourselves. And it's timely with Mother's Day coming up, like just recognizing that nurturing place for us, for you, for me, to actually really nourish ourselves in the heart and nourish ourselves in the mind. And so true stewardship begins when we stop reacting and we start observing. And so that's the first step on our soul money map, is to become radically honest with our situation and see it all laid out in the soul set budget. And I think it brings up some of the more subconscious things in seeing where we are, both if we're in that surplus and we are not allocating it in the right way. Maybe we're splurging and overspending because we're not feeling safe or seen. And these are all things that arise out of that intuition or that heart-led financial map, rather than the fear-based financial anxiety that drives our decisions in our money story. And I've been listening to Alan Watts. He's someone that I'm always sort of tuning into because he's so powerful in some of the words that he uses. But he spoke about how human suffering comes from living too far in the future, mentally rehearsing problems that do not yet exist. And if there's one place we do this beautifully, it's with money. And because it's something that's very easy to do, but it's also that old paradigm around how we're always pushing to get ahead so that at some point in the future we can be financially free. And so much of financial stress isn't actually about money in the moment. It's about the stories we tell ourselves about what money might mean tomorrow. And I think that's an interesting contemplation around, what's happening in the world with the noise of, and what's happening with ourselves. And are we responding to some of that noise? Is that causing some financial anxiety in us? Is it an opportunity for us to look at how we're feeling right now? And scarcity often speaks loudly. So that fear of scarcity, of not having enough, often is the loud voice within us. Intuition and that peace and that presence often will be a quieter voice. And so, I just pose that question around, which wolf are we feeding? Are we feeding our intuition, or are we feeding our financial anxiety? And I want to ask that to you today. As always, it's a short conversation just to prompt that thinking in our conversation around our finances. And I love to bring this topic felt right at this time to have it. And I really look to everyone to share where they're feeling right now, what's going on, what's happening in our in the landscape of our money relationship. Have a wonderful week. I can't wait to jump on again when I get the time. I plan to do that in the next week, but if it's in the next 2 weeks, then I will do that. As always, have a wonderful day and happy Mother's Day.